So just some background, the Rutgers Core Component Library was developed over the course of a 20-month project where we partnered with Rutgers New Brunswick, the Office for Research, to create and redesign our own websites. Through that partnership, we developed a common set of website components that is now the component library. So all units at the university can take advantage to create a website. Initially, the CMS right now, or content management system used, is Drupal. There will be a WordPress version coming, I would say probably mid 2022, maybe summer 2022. The Office of Information Technology is working on the WordPress version. Know that the WordPress version may not be as robust as the Drupal version, but that is something that's coming. So look for more updates on that. So the Rutgers Core Component Library, we're creating this family of websites here at the university. We want users who visit our websites to have a experience that is relevant, also brand forward and accessible for those with disabilities. And so all of those features are built into the RCCL. Also, we want to make sure that web development is easy. So with the Rutgers Core Component Library, of course, your unit gets the code, or maybe you're already working in it and you have the code. That code is installed by your website developer and configured, and then you're provided with access to add your content. So working in the RCCL and creating a website through it is quite streamlined by using it. So just to get into the topic a little bit more, the Core Component Library is made up of components, 65 plus so or more components. It's interesting because I heard an article or saw a TV article where during the pandemic, Legos, the sale of Legos skyrocketed. Evidently, adults are taking to building Legos. And it really resonated with me because we use the Lego analogy for the Core Component Library. So we like to think of all of the components available in the system as Legos, and you'll use those Legos to basically build out pages in the system. Forthcoming, if you're interested in using the Core Component Library and you haven't used it and you want more information, again, please feel free to reach out to me. So joining us today is Maria Hall. Maria, wave your hand. Maria is our senior designer with Creative Services. In that role, she conceptualizes and recommends and develops graphics and layouts that really advance the university's strategic priorities, both in print and digital. And also joining us is Joanne Desastro. Joanne, wave. Joanne is Senior Director of University of Creative Services here in University Communications and Marketing, and she oversees development of print, digital web, and photographic communications, materials, and assets. She leads university-wide design solutions and supports communications initiatives for the central administration. Both Joanne and Maria recently worked on the materials for the inaugural event. And so that's one of the things they like to highlight and are proud of. So with that, today we're going to be talking about working in images in the RCCL. So really quickly, I wanted to share my screen just to show you a little bit about, let's see, am I sharing? Oh, sorry, I have two screens, okay. All right, so sharing the RCCL, hopefully you can see a main page. The new Core Component Library is very rich in terms of presenting imagery to or on to visitors. And so I just wanted to show you an example. This is the School of Dental Medicine that uses the Rutgers Core Component Library. We're looking at their academics landing page, and you can see one of their heroes is a large image. And then here they're presenting each of their programs, again, using images that resonate and are interesting. So the new pages use less text, and definitely it's more graphically rich. So that's one page. I also wanted to highlight the Office of Career Exploration and Success. This website, you're looking at their homepage here, you're seeing ambient video, and then they're teeing up information that you need to know. Again, you see small thumbnail graphics are used here. And then again, they've used what we call our news display component, but they created as a guide, and you can see here also imagery that is used. And so that's why today we thought that it is so important to touch base and hone in on ways that you can work with images in the system. So with that, I wanted to just turn it over to Joanne.
As Jeremy pointed out, images are really important in using the RCCL. And so we thought we'd talk a little bit about selecting and using images and show you some of the one of the guides that we've developed that will hopefully help you as you size images and place them in your websites. So to start off with, selecting an image, things to consider. Now, obviously, we can use the generic, is your image good? Well, what does that mean? So good is it compatible with the chosen component, what you're going to place that image into? But before that, when you're looking for an image, do you have the rights to use the image? All of us have had some experiences where, well, somebody found this online. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that one has the rights to use the image. Secondly, does that image have enough pixels? As Jeremy showed you, some of the images are very large in the RCCL. So if you don't have enough pixels, it's very problematic. And as I mentioned, is your image compatible with the chosen component? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So going back to the rights, you have the rights to use the image if you downloaded the image from the Rutgers Digital Asset Library, which is Merlin 1. If you don't know about the Digital Asset Library, please check it out. It's rutgers.merlin1.net. And every image in there that is for global use, you have the rights to use on a website. We have university-wide images in there, and it is a great way to get generic images for your website. In addition, if you've contracted a photographer, say maybe through the ACE program, you have the rights through that contract to use the images on the website. But if somebody gives you an image, so a faculty member gives you an image from a friend, or a photographer photographed them, another photographer photographed the faculty member for their book, well, you do have to check with that photographer to make sure that they're okay with you using that image on your website. Many images require completed and signed model releases. That has to do with if you're doing a custom photo shoot. You want the subjects to know that you're going to be using their images broadly. We did put a caveat in here, unless images were taken at an event like commencement. Large events like inauguration or commencement, usually in the program, we post a statement saying that photography and videography are happening during those events so that people know that they might appear in an image. So that's something to be mindful of. If you take a picture of a friend and they actually pose for you, they really should sign a release saying they have given you the rights to use that image. The other thing we note is complies with image restrictions. So we put this in because A lot of people at the university are starting to use stock imagery, and Shutterstock happens to be a source of stock imagery. We noticed during certain searches that we've had for images that there are times when images are indicated for editorial use only. And that happens more often than not with images that are news oriented or event oriented. The website is not editorial. A website is promotional. Editorial means like Rutgers Today, the news article, Rutgers Magazine. But if you're just posting the image large as sort of a promotional on a promotional page, technically you're promoting your unit. That's not editorial. So it doesn't happen with most images in a source like Shutterstock, but it's something to double check. And there's also sort of free government images. And we had the same instance, the free government images, they are free, but they have restrictions. So just be careful to double check that before you go further. Does the image have enough pixels? This little image here, it looks great. But when you blow it up to fit in a hero space, it's blurry. So that is the problem with the pixels. There aren't enough pixels in this image. And so when you download from the Merlin system, there will be enough pixels. But if somebody sends you a picture, they send you a phone picture and it's a vertical, it's not going to have enough pixels to be a giant wide hero image. So that is something to be mindful of. Is the image compatible with the component? So the full hero images require large horizontal images. And as you can see, this one component is a little shorter than this. But both components, when words lay over an image, there is an overlay tint that is coded into the system. And you can't remove that. That happens. So in this case, the full width hero, the tint covers the whole background so that you can read the type. It is an accessibility requirement. In this image, the basic hero, the typography is coded to occur along the bottom edge of the image. So there's a gradation. It starts darker and goes to lighter. So that's something to be mindful of. Sometimes if you have access to the tools like Photoshop, it's okay to lighten or brighten your image so that when it's behind the tint, it's not very dull. Here's another example. Is the image compatible with the component? If you use the hero with the swoosh is always on the left. And this overlay shows you that the image X is this size. And you will see only this portion of the image where you see the arch. So the best part of your image has to occur in the top right of that picture in order to work in the swoosh. So that's what we mean by compatible. In addition, the user choice carousel, which you're seeing here on the right, user choice carousel is taking the middle portion of the image. And again, if nothing great showed up in this space, then it's not going to show up great on your website. So here's a little bit more information about sizing the image. The default image size is 2100 by 1400 pixels at 72 DPI. At the end of this presentation, we're going to show you our image sizing guide, which is a great cheat sheet for all the sizes of the images. And you can also look at the Pattern Lab website, which on every image in the site, it puts the size of that image requirement. I'm going to pause for a second, and Maria's going to show you in Photoshop how to double check the size of your image.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Okay, so I downloaded this image from the Rutgers Digital Asset Library, which is Merlin 1. So just at a quick glance, you will see the size here on the bottom corner, but what we'd like to do is actually go up to image. I'm in Photoshop, by the way. Go up to image size, And there's your sizing is here. So right now it's at 18.56 by 12.373 inches. And what we want to do is work in pixels. So, and also, I'm sorry, and the resolution should be 72 dpi. And in order to convert to pixels, what I first do is I change this to 72. So it's the resolution 72. And then go here and change these to pixels. So when you do that, it shows it's actually smaller than it should be. Our default size of the 2100 by 1400, it should appear here. In order to fix this, you would have to unclick resample, and it brings you back to inches. And then you would actually, oh, I'm sorry, and then you have to click back on resample and change it to pixels. So as in pixels, it's the 5568 by 3712. So now that we're in pixels, we can go ahead and actually size this down to the default size. So typing in 2100, and it automatically adjusts it to the 1400, which is the default size. Then you hit OK. And that is the proper size that would be able to be uploaded.
Passing the baton back, Maria.
Back to you, Joanne.
Back to you, Joanne. Back to you at the studio. Okay. So that is for the largest image in the website. Now, by the way, you can use the large image for everything, but sometimes when a site is nothing but large images in the back end, it maybe isn't as fast as it could be on mobile. So when we go into the image sizing guide, we'll go over the other sizes for you. Just to give you an idea that you don't have to stick with the 2100 by 1400, but that is what you need for the big stuff. I'm assuming there aren't any questions. I'm going to just keep on going. All right, you've selected an image. Now what? So this is sort of a little bit continuation. I'm going to go back to Maria in a second. You will optimize your image. We recommend following a naming convention. You save the image in the proper format, and then you upload the image and set a focal point if needed. So we're going to go through those steps next. This is optimizing the image. In Photoshop, you're going to go to File, Export, and Save for Web. Optimizing is going to sort of reduce the size of the image, so there's less data. Less data works when you start off with a great crisp image, because then you can visually go with less data. But if you start off with a crappy image and you go to less data, you're not helping yourself. It's really not, it's not going to look good. So you save for the web. And when the window opens, you adjust the quality to 50 to 75%, depending on the clarity of your image. And you preview your image. So you don't have to go through the whole process and like do this and say, oh crap, I don't like it now that I uploaded it. You actually can preview the image in the browser before you save the file as a JPEG. So Maria, do you want to show that now?
Yes. Okay, so we are back with the same image that we actually sized down already. So now what I want to do is optimize this and save this for the web. So what I would first do is you wouldn't save it, you would actually export. So you'd export, save for web. And here is a preview of the image. We're just going to reduce that. Can everybody see this okay? I hope. So this is where the optimization happens. So at 100%, the way we brought it in, there's information here in the corner that shows what the file size is. So right now it's 1.7 megs.
Maria, is it possible
Yes.
for you to zoom in any on your screen?
I can't, the window does not, it doesn't allow me to zoom in
doesn't
on
zoom.
this.
Okay, that's
No,
fine.
I'm sorry. So yes, just getting back. So then the sizing would be here in the corner at 100% quality. So we don't want to use that because that file size is too big. So when we say optimization, it really means the quality of the image. So we want to bring down the quality of the image to, let's start off with, at 50. So the 50% quality. So when you notice here, it's 50% quality. And now your file size is 283K. So that's a big difference in file size. But you still want to know what it looks like. So here's a preview button here in the corner. So if you click on the preview button, it'll launch a page where you can see what it looks like before you actually save the image. And you could leave this up while you go back and you don't like it at 50%. It might look a little bit blurry. So let's bring this up to 75%. At 75%, the data file size goes up to 616. And then that you can also preview. So now you have the two images side by side, and you can zoom in on it just to make sure. Oops. I concentrate on the president's face. I don't know if you could see. But this is at the 50% quality compared to the 75% quality. I don't know if you can tell on your end, but the 75% quality is a little bit sharper. When you do this, you need to keep in mind that when you upload an image, the system automatically degrades the image at 75%. So you're putting an image up at 75%, and then the system is bringing it down another 75%. So you have to just make sure that you start off with a nice crisp image, and then you're able to adjust the quality accordingly. Because if you start off with something that's a little bit blurry, you'd probably want to keep the quality up a little bit higher just to accommodate the system degrade. That's that word I can never pronounce. It degrading, and then also the way that you would save it. But that's it for that, Joanne. I'm going to stop sharing.
I have a question. In terms of, you said the word degrade. Is that the same as compression, I think?
Yes, it's really just lessening the quality. So compression is lessening the quality of an image. Yes.
There's a good question in, Joanne, if you're talking, you're on mute, but there is a good question. Cindy asked, we get so many low res images. What do we do with those? Low resolution images.
If an image, there is no way to increase resolution with something that is supplied with low resolution. So the challenge is going back to perhaps the image sizing guide and see, is it appropriate for whatever component you're planning it for? So if somebody does supply an image that is low for the hero space, I wouldn't use it. I mean, you have to remember the hero spaces at the top are sort of the biggest spaces that the images occur in, the most prominent. And that is not where you put crappy photos. I'm being blunt. That is where you have to put the good photos because they're calling attention to the page. So there is no way to add data if data doesn't exist. You can only go with giant amount of data and cut it down. You can't take something that has nothing in it and magically make data appear. That's just the way it works.
And
Sorry, Cindy, but when they give you crummy images or low images, low res images, you can't improve them.
right, and also, I just want to jump in. When you do have a low res image, you don't really want to optimize that, because if it's already blurry and to bring it down to like 50% quality, it's just not going to be good. So for something like that, I would probably keep it at like 100%. And especially if you're going to use it in a small space, it's not going to take up a lot of space, so it should be fine.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. I mean, the low res, like maybe if you're just doing like a thumbnail, you're doing like a people collection, a
Yeah.
low res crummy photo can work there, but it's not going to work in a 50-50, kind of thing.
No,
Right.
definitely not.
You wouldn't want to degrade it any more than it's already to begin with.
Correct. So it would work like in a feature. So as long as the container size is small, I think it'll be okay. It's not ideal, but it'll be okay.
I have a question, Jeremy. So the image that we just saw of President Holloway, where Maria optimized it at 75%. If the system optimizes images at approximately 75%, is there a need for Maria to re-optimize it, to optimize it even further at 75%?
I think that's a good question. Maybe that's something we could circle back to. The reality is we would have to see how much that really reduces the size of the image. Because you're right, the fact that the system automatically optimizes by 75%, that was instituted to make it so that folks don't necessarily have to optimize images on their own. So let us definitely circle back with that, but obviously reducing the file size even more with the double optimization, it should reduce the file size, but good question, Joanne.
Right.
Can I just share? I actually uploaded those images onto Page, so I'm just going to share my screen.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay. So this is that same image I sized to the 2100 by 1400. So this has no compression. So this was uploaded at 100% 72 DPI. You can see it's nice and crisp. So this would be suitable for like a hero or a full size width image. I uploaded also, I'm sorry, let me get back to this. So at 100% right now, it is at 1.8 megabytes. So this one was uploaded at 75% quality. Excuse me, at 75% quality. You can tell from the first and the second, it still looks pretty good. And that file size went down from 1.8 to 642. And the third was uploaded at 50% quality, same dimensions. And since we started off with a really nice crisp image, it still looks good. It still looks good at 50%. And also keep in mind, this is in the system and it is already 50% reduced from the 75% from the system. So the savings there is 301 kilobytes. So you're going from 50% quality to 100% quality. You're saving a lot of data.
So that really answers the question, Joanne.
Yeah.
And you don't have to reduce, but you can see how much faster a page will load on your website and will not burden the data
Right.
by a visitor by
What
doing
I
that
will point
compression.
out, and I don't know how good, so I'm on a Mac laptop. It's got a Retina screen. So when I look at the 50% quality image versus the 75%, there's definitely a color difference. The red in the knight's outfit is different. Look how the red goes from a brighter red to a duller red. So you're starting to lose data that way. And really the best one is the top one, because when you look at the red in the first one, it has the most vivid color. You can see the color in the president's jacket, see the color in the knight's the knight's outfit. Those are some of the differences. Some users may not care. I mean, I'm a designer. Maria's a designer. We're pickier. But I just wanted to point that out, because to my eye, we just like took some of the, you know, the oomph out of the picture by compressing it too much. So that's the cost benefit analysis. If your website doesn't have tons of large images, you know, don't go too far down on them if they're gorgeous images. But it does, there is no magic in this. Some of it is developing the eye for what you want your website to look like. And that will come over time as you work with images more and more, and you start to be attuned to what you're placing. And if you have the responsibility to collect and place images, you will very quickly develop an eye for what is not working and what is.
And so I do want to bring up a point that definitely having pages that have less load, or images that are optimized, is key. Do know that in terms of SEO, search engine optimization, Google is ranking pages on how quickly they also come up. So take that to account, when you are considering optimizing photos.
Right. Okay, so back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we just went through optimizing. Now we're going to talk a little bit about naming the file when you save it. So we recommend, and this is a recommendation, to keep the original file name. Now, so for us, so particularly when one uses an image downloaded from the digital asset library, it has a designated file name. And we do that because when somebody says, well, we like that picture, where'd you get it? And then, like, if you've changed the name dramatically, and a year later, you're like, I have no idea where that picture came from or what it is. So it's good to keep the original file name. And we do add a prefix, and we'll show you some of those prefixes. For example, when an image is loaded as a hero and it's going in at the big size, we add an LG. That's large. Because that way, I see that in the back end in the image library, I can use that again. I can reduce that and use that in a small space. But if it doesn't have a large there, you can't take that. You shouldn't take that image and make it a hero image. So over time, as you have a growth of images in your image library and you want to play musical chairs with them, the prefixes help give you a clue as to how that image is used. For us also, when we receive images from schools, we add a suffix that says what school that image came from. And again, that's so that when we're in the image library, we know that, oh yes, this came from the Blaustein School. This was very helpful for James, who built all the school and colleges pages in Rutgers.edu, and he reached out to all these organizations and units and asked them to supply images. And it just helped him keep track when looking in the image library where some of the images came from. So this is just a recommendation, but try to have a consistent approach to what you're doing with your images as you place them, because it becomes a routine and it makes it easier to manage what you're doing.
I'll chime in there with one quick point too. If you can, keep your original file name, and if it's a little abstract, maybe add a keyword or so to your file name in addition to any other prefixes you're appending. It makes finding those images when you come back to them a year or so later, it makes it a lot easier to find them if they have a good keyword that would match what folks are searching for within the CMS. It doesn't have the most robust search functions.
Right. And over time, the image library, James, you can attest to this, grows exponentially. So it will help you search through that image library as you scroll through the list.
Yes, and if you're able to train the folks in your unit who use the system to search first and upload second, you can avoid having a lot of duplicate images uploaded to your system. It's easier said than done because lots of cooks in the kitchen, things happen. But in an ideal world, you would be able to search for images prior to taking more time to upload copies of them.
Thanks, James. So save the image in the proper file format. So photos are saved as JPEGs. Graphics with a lot of flat color, logos, graphics, illustrations with flat color should be saved as PNG files. But for the most part, your work is going to be saved as a JPEG. And as Maria noted, the RCCL system automatically compresses the images. And last but not least is a little trick called setting the focal point. After uploading an image, you use crosshairs to set up a focal point section of what you want to focus on. If you set a focal point for an image and want to use the same image in another component, though, you must upload the image again and set the new focal point, because that focal point sort of travels with the image. So if you loaded the image and set a focal point and you want to use that image somewhere else in your site, it's going to hold on to that focal point. So if it's going in a dramatically different component where you really need a different focal point, you should upload the image again. Now I'm going to pass the baton back to Maria and she will show you some examples of setting the focal point.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So actually, let's show you a couple of examples of the focal point here. So these are 50/50s. I'm just showing you that when you upload an image and you center the focal point, I put these blue crosshairs here just for reference, but so when you center the image, this is what it looks like. So then you would have to upload another one with a different focal point. I set this for the left side and this is what it looks like. You could see that it's shifted a little bit from the center to the left. And then for this one, I gave this a right focal point where most of the focus is on the right side. I'm going to.
So Maria, the crosshairs are not where you set the focal point. The crosshairs are the center of the image.
It's a center image, but I'm going to show you, hang on a second. Okay, so when I know this is going to be really small, I'm going to try to make it bigger. I don't know if you could see this.
Yeah, that was better, Maria.
The bigger one?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you upload an image, this is the focal point, the crosshairs we were talking about. So this could shift left or right. This one was set in the middle, and that's what you see here. Okay, so so I'm actually going to go back to the other one where this is the left focus. So you could see that I moved the crosshairs all the way to the corner. And then when you see it on the page, it does shift it so a little bit more of the focus is on the left side. And then the third one is the right focus, where you just move this all the way to the right and save it. And this is what it looks like. Now it's really important wait, hold on a second. So So if you adjust your screen, you could kind of just see that, you know, how it looks. So this probably looks better when it's focused on the left.
So
What do you
Maria,
think, Joanne?
while you're on this screen, can you adjust the size of your browser window to mimic the phone? Okay, so I wanted to point this out. So it's very important to know that you're not within the RCCL, you don't crop images to squares. You don't crop images to other shapes. You load the images really as the full horizontal, because as you can see, the RCCL is a responsive set of code. The images and the components adjust to the size of the browser window. So on the phone, even if your component, your 50/50 component on your desktop looks like a square, it needs the full horizontal for the phone view, because on the phone, the 50/50 becomes a waterfall where you get the content, which is the blue box, followed by, there's a little point, it points to the photo runs below. So that is just, that is one of the key things you have to remember about the RCCL. It's not like other sites where you're chopping your photo to fit a shape. You are loading this full width image in so that when the page reorients, depending on the browser window, you have a horizontal. And that's something that it takes a while to get used to, because that's the whole issue with setting the focal point for what you need to see at perhaps on desktop versus how the image orients when it's on the phone. Maria or James, do you have any other comments you want to make to that point, since you've worked with a lot of images?
Well, you know what, it's like if you are working with a vertical image, which we don't want to work with, I would put that on a 2100 by 1400 canvas and put the image on top of that. So then you would end up having a size like this that would fit. Yeah, you'll probably see like a color background that you would add, but it works best, you know, for mobile that way. Just to note too, if you're on the website, on the web page, it does take, excuse me, it does take the full height of the image and uses that. So if you have more text here, this image will get bigger.
So what Maria is saying, so it just so happens that this 50/50 has 2 paragraphs. If that 50/50 had 4 paragraphs, then the size of the image on the right becomes taller. So it's adjusting the image to be more vertical. But even though that's what you see on the desktop, when you go back to the phone view, it's still going to show you a little horizontal picture above the full 50/50 text. So it's always useful to adjust your browser window back and forth as you're entering things, so you get a sense that, so you know yourself what your users are seeing. You want to make sure that you know what people are seeing. Don't just plop the photo in and on desktop and think that the whole world's looking at it that way, because they're not.
That's a great point, Joanne. We also had a question about, so let's just say you have an image, you had President Holloway here in the site, and you were using him in a different location in the site. How does the focal point affect the image and the multiple times it may be used in the system? And how would you account for that?
Well, you place it and you test it, you see what it looks like, but I mean, it's going to carry whatever focal point is set here, it's going to carry that with the image wherever it's placed. So if you need a different focal point, you have to enter the image, upload it a second time with a different name, and then give it a new focal point.
On
Or
these,
actually,
oh, I'll just
Go
add
ahead.
from my experience, usually like a focal point adjustment is generally you kind of want it. I haven't found myself needing to like re-upload a photo because the focal point adjustment is so dramatic that it looks worse one way or another. But you have to keep in mind that like it's a universal change, and so if you're using your photo at a 50-50 like this versus in a smaller space or here or elsewhere, and you make that adjustment, you have to be aware that that it's going to make that change everywhere the photo is used. And if you don't want that change, you'll have to upload the photo again with a new file name and set the focal point accordingly.
And
Thanks,
also
Janine.
too, if somebody else is working on the same project and has uploaded an image that you don't know that they uploaded, and then you happen to find it in the system, you need to use it, you shouldn't change that focal point because that would probably affect what that other person is using it for. You know, so there's that to keep in mind too. I'm gonna stop sharing, Joanne.
Okay, let's see. I think I hit the end of this magical document. Yes. So there are a lot of links here that will help you using images. There's a page in the Communicating About Rutgers site that gives an overview on getting photography help at Rutgers. Obviously, the Merlin One digital asset library, the pattern lab if you want to look at the sizes. I highly recommend the RCCL demo site. Jeremy is doing, it's just amazing. She's doing a great job with the site. Yes, she says it's not done, but there is a lot of information there and it's going to grow over time. A reminder to use your model releases in HIPAA forms, and just a little like reminder on HIPAAs. So you're interviewing someone. They mentioned that they broke their leg in a car accident. That equals a HIPAA form. They just gave you medical information. So even though, you know, let's say you're doing a story about how they do some artwork that has nothing to do with their broken leg, but they have revealed to you that they broke their leg, that equals a HIPAA form. They gave you medical information, which is private. So even though you're not posting that information on the website, they told it to you. So you should get a HIPAA form. I'm just passing that along. We get a lot of questions about that. I'm going to close this and I'm going to open
Joanne?
Yes.
Before you go on, there is one question that Diana asked. So Diana asked, when using Adobe stock images, should we also double check the editorial guidelines before we use those? Or can we use any photos in there due to the Adobe license? And I don't know, Diana.
Adobe stock images are exactly the same as Shutterstock images, exactly the same as other stock images. You have to check. I mean, if it's a picture of an apple or a leaf or most, you know, generic stuff, yeah, you know, that's going to be generic. It really happens with very customized images or news images from what I have found, but it is always worth checking. Cindy's been doing a lot of that. She's been working on the website for the Institute for the Study of Global Racial Justice, and images are coming from many sources, and we just double check each one. It's very quick. It's usually when you go to download the image, the rights are listed there, and it's just something you look at when you're ready to download your image.
Also, can I just say too, like in Shutterstock, it actually, there's a little tick box that you have to check off to make sure that you understand it's an editorial image. So they just want to make sure you do that before you actually download the image.
For editorial, yes.
For editorial only, yes.
Yes. So, but for the most part, most of the stock in Adobe stock are stock. I'm not really sure if Adobe adds news photos. I mean, truthfully, I've only found it on things that were event coverage. over the past year when people wanted stuff representing whether it was people wanted demonstrations or protests or things like that, but like news events, when it was a news event, it had that caveat. All right, so I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to jump into the image sizing guide. And I just want to give a special thank you to Amy Ang for putting this together, working with Maria, because it was a huge amount of work, and with help from Jeremy, James, and the whole web team, Danielle, and trying to make sure we were all on the same page with image sizes. So what this guide does is it goes through sort of all the image types that are listed in the RCCL style guide. So the RCCL style guide calls something an F16 user choice. So this sizing guide goes through all of those and gives you a specific size with the overall guidelines, which we just went through in the presentation. But then blow by blow, it shows you an example and it shows you, it gives you the size that you need. So I recommend, having this front and center because it's very useful. You certainly don't need to print it out, the table of contents that links to all the specific pages where these things occur. It does remind you here that there's a gradient so that you can accommodate that. Article images are specifically for news articles, so you may not come across that. Rich text images are in line when they are placed in line. And those you can't make, whatever you enter it as, it's going to size it a certain way. The system is coded to size embed and embed small. You get two choices. So you can't really go wild with that. And I recommend any of my partners in crime because I'm doing the talking here, but I'm using the system the least, so it's full disclosure. So obviously Maria, James, Danielle, anybody else, please chime in. Mm-hmm. Person cards, yes, when you're doing portraits of people, it's nice to have them like similar size heads. What does a feature? This is a featured event image. So this is a great tool. Little reminder, when you're putting in a video, you actually have to put in a still image. Otherwise, you're getting a gray box. Little tips in here for everything that is in the system. With examples and sizes. So is there anything else, Maria, that I should point out while I'm scrolling through this, Maria or Amy?
Nope, I think everything, everything is there. It's a good reference for if you get stuck on something, but
yeah, and everything, each of the components are linked to the pattern lab. So you can see it there as well.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's little tips, like for example, the description and image card. It tells you the system uses the center of the image. And so if you are loading a horizontal image, the system's going to take the center of the image. So that's just something to be mindful of. And it displays it from top to bottom. So it's going to show the full image.
I think, let me just also add, I think one of the most important takeaways also is that you can put in an image at 2100 by 1400 and the system will automatically size it to wherever you're going to use it in the system. So don't feel as an editor that you have to necessarily size images down for each place you're going to use them. Behind the scenes, the system will automatically size an image down to the area where you want to use it.
Right. And that's some of that is, if you're a one-man shop there, which, Rutgers has a lot of other duties as assigned kind of descriptions, job descriptions. if you have uploaded a large image and you've optimized it well, so it is small data, you know, do you really want to go through all that process to use it again somewhere else small in the system? You may not gain that much. So some of it is like how you manage the workload and the time in working on your website. But all of this shows, so for example, the display cards with rollover, it shows you that there's a tint, so you can be mindful of that. Recommending this feature topic, it tells you, you know, a background image in grayscale is better because then when you add color images on top, they show up. This, it shows you how the image is loaded. It shows you what the image looks like in the component. So very helpful, this little guide. So I will go to the end because we've also indicated again the steps how to optimize your images. The image naming conventions, our code name for our codes for the schools, and then how to take a YouTube screenshot and save it as a JPEG for use when you're uploading a video. So all of this is in the handy dandy guide. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And are there additional questions? Nope. I will add that one of the things that we've noticed here in UCM, so doing portraits, like headshots, quote unquote headshots. Headshots in the past were always like little verticals with a person in the middle. It is really better now to give you more flexibility, to shoot pictures, to have more background floating around the person so that you have you know, an image that is more flexible for you to use. So I would keep that in mind.
I want to thank our presenters, Maria Hall, Joanne Disastro, James Foley for helping out, and also Amy Eng for helping out with this presentation.